Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of FFB from the 50. This is another Fantasy Barside Chat. This time I'm just joined by Adam. So Adam's got a couple questions that he wants us to address. We're going to do this as a conversation. Where he's going to ask a series of questions. We're going to go, he wants to do the Shark Tank style.
Yeah, and Shark Tank is one of those shows that's been around for a while. They always say if they're out on a certain entrepreneur coming in, and what I kind of want to do here is with certain fantasy football draft strategies or just playing strategies throughout the season, whether or not we're in or out on these things.
Okay. And what we would like for you guys to do is go down and join us in this discussion down in the comment section. So we're going to answer these questions. He's going to ask them. I'm going to give him my take on it. He's going to give his, whether or not we're in or out. If you could, down in the comment section, let us know if you're in or out, but more importantly, let us know why. We've been saying, and this is something we really need to start pushing more on the show, is an explanation. So we are just regular fantasy football players. We don't claim to be experts, but we are regular fantasy football players who have found quite a bit of success, won quite a bit of money, and thoroughly enjoy the game. And we want you to be a part of that. So go down to the comment section, be a part of these conversations. If you want to come on the show with me, let me know. Right now, we are down in the shadow of Cincinnati. I am from Northwest Indiana, so I'm certainly willing to travel. If you want to come out and see me, that's fine. This show is for everybody. This is like everybody's fantasy football show. Like I said, we don't claim to be experts. We're not going to go in there and give you bad advice. Basically, we're just going to have conversations. We're going to stimulate that conversation. We're going to give you food for thought. What you choose to do with it is up to you. Take our advice or don't. That's perfectly fine. All right, so Adam, first one up.
So Dan, the first strategy that I want to talk to you about, and whether or not you're in or out on this, is handcuffing.
Okay.
Mostly, it can be running backs, but it can also be wide receivers too. So when it comes to handcuffing, are you in or out?
Handcuffing, I'm out. I'm absolutely 100% out. Now, does that mean that if there's a backfield where there's two guys that are both fantasy relevant, in that case, that's not a true handcuff, right? So if you had, we talked in other episodes, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara from a few years back, that's not a handcuff. Both of those guys are fantasy relevant. A couple years ago, you had Nick Chubb and, help me out here.
Well, Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt. So a couple years ago, you had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's not a true handcuff. So as far as a true handcuff goes, I'm out, and here's why. I have said in this show in the past, go out and check out some of the previous episodes, that I do not like wasting roster spots. So if you hear nothing else from me, I do not like wasting roster spots. Those roster spots are incredibly valuable. Why would I waste a roster spot on a guy that I'm hoping to not start? I mean, that's like literally taking out an insurance policy that you're hoping to never have to cash, but you're spending money in the meantime. Our season's only 14 games long. I am out. I am 100% out. I do not want to waste a roster spot on a guy that I'm hoping that will not start.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in on handcuffing, and I didn't used to really be in on handcuffing, but I think I'm kind of seeing it, the effects of it really playing out this year. Now, granted, in this one particular league, I drafted Jonathan Taylor and I drafted Javonte Williams. Now, this team has only, as you've seen in previous chats, this team has only won 2 matchups and it's lost 4. Now, one thing I did during the draft, I backed up Jonathan Taylor with Nyheim Hines. Granted, he wasn't the true handcuff, but I wanted to at least back him up. And I also backed up Javonte Williams with Melvin Gordon. Hasn't worked out as good as I would like, but it was kind of like having an insurance policy. Now, the thing is, though, you say you don't like wasting draft picks. That's the problem sometimes when you do want a handcuff. You have to commit to the cuff. You have to be willing to hold on to that cuff unless, God forbid, something happens to the main running back. Now, it's not just Nyheim Hines with Jonathan Taylor. Granted, Nyheim Hines wasn't really the official backup to Jonathan Taylor, but Melvin Gordon is the official handcuff to Javonte Williams, sort of. But let's also look at it other ways. Alexander Madison, he is definitely the true handcuff to Dalvin Cook. Also, you could definitely say A.J. Dillon is the handcuff to Aaron Jones in case Aaron Jones goes down with an injury. Now, granted, some handcuffs are not created equal. So you kind of really have to look at your team settings and say, okay, if this guy goes down with an injury or something else related, is this definitely the guy? And I think definitely if you drafted Dalvin Cook, you wanted to make sure you had Alexander Madison right there on your team. So for that reason, I'm in on handcuffing.
Okay, well, you just actually, I think, made my point. So go down to the comment section, let me know what you guys think. But 2 things right there. So you never know who the true handcuff is going to be, right? So that you're running into that. So Deion Jackson, he ends up turning out to be the true handcuff for Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. We thought Melvin Gordon was going to be the true handcuff. We've seen Mike Boone get some carries. They went out and signed Latavius Murray. So that's my first problem with handcuffs. The second one, you said you got to commit to it in the draft. Well, when do you take those players? I'm just saying, folks, you've heard me say this before. I've said this in so many videos. I don't want to take those players. I want to take guys with huge upsides. So, yeah, you have to be committed to it. There's a third point that you just made. If you take a guy like Dalvin Cook, you have to have their handcuff. Then don't take Dalvin Cook. If you are so concerned about that guy not being able to make it through the season because he's got an injury history, don't take that guy. I've been burnt by Dalvin Cook twice. I'm never going to take him again. Now, is that smart strategy? Probably not. We're going to do a fantasy football sin video where we talk about that. We talk about, letting your fandom rule your fantasy teams. But no, I'm not a fan. And I think you actually made my point for me better than I did.
Okay. All right. The next one I want to talk about, if we're in or out on, is stacking your bye weeks.
Okay, so I'm completely in. And here's why. This is very simple. I'm not saying that I purposely go out and stack my bye weeks, but I am one of those fantasy football players that doesn't even look at bye weeks when I'm drafting my team. If I had my brothers, if I had my choice, I'd have all my guys on bye the same week, and here's why. I would rather be weak during 1 week and wind up 13-1 than have guys with bye weeks spread out, because here's why. Let's say that you have your bye weeks spread out all over the place. Okay, so the problem with that is every single week you're going to be stuck trying to fill that bye week position player. So you got a guy in bye, now you got to go fill that position. If you got him on your bench, that's great. Otherwise, you're adding, subtracting, going out to free agency waivers too much. I would rather be strong when everybody else is weak and only have to worry about 1 week where I am weak, no pun intended. So I'm a huge fan of stacking my bye weeks. I'll take 13-1 anytime. I would love to be at full strength while everybody else is fighting the bye week blues. I just don't see any benefit in spreading that out. I don't want to be weak. I want to be strong as many weeks as possible. And if other people are weak during those because they're fighting the bye week blues, so much the better. Are you in or out?
Well, with the way you just talked about that, you said you're in on stacking your bye weeks. I'm out on stacking bye weeks. But kind of piggybacking off your discussion where you said you would rather be strong week in one particular week of the season than have it be spread out. Now, going into the draft, I'll let you in on a little secret of mine. I don't even look at bye weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly. I don't
exactly.
worry about it.
But if they end up falling like this week for week 7, I've got Philadelphia on bye. I've got Buffalo on bye. The Rams are on bye, and who else is on bye?
I'm not telling you. You got to remember. 4 big teams. There's 4 big ones this week.
Right. Rams, Eagles.
Do I need to pull up our matchup against each other?
Maybe.
Keep struggling. I love it when you struggle. Keep struggling. Because we're facing each other this week.
Rams, Eagles.
We're facing
Bills.
each other. Come on. Minnesota, buddy.
Minnesota. So.
All right. Threw in a life jacket. Minnesota. We're facing each other this week. I got Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown on bye going against you this week.
Right. But I did not intentionally mean for that to happen. It just happened. I didn't see.
But honestly, let's be realistic. How often is it that 4 power-packed teams are on bye the same? I mean, you look at last week, we had 4 teams on bye. Was it really relevant? There was good players on bye, but it's not like it was this week.
Right. Okay. But for that reason, that's why I'm out on it. I just don't even look at the bye weeks. If they happen to be on stacked fine. If they happen to be spread out, fine. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, so to me, what that sounds like is I'm all for it. Adam doesn't really care either way, so it's almost kind of like a push.
Yeah.
Like if we're betting, that's a push, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to what I was saying before. It's like you and I are facing each other this week. I've got Justin Jefferson on bye. I've got AJ Brown on bye. But next week, those guys aren't going to be. I'm going to be pretty much back to full strength. But the guy that I've already looked ahead, the guy that I'm playing next week has 4 people out on bye. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's my point. Like I honestly don't care. I don't even pay attention to it either. So this conversation is more of a push. But again, like I said, I would rather wind up 13-1 than have to worry 4 or 5 weeks what I'm going to do here, what I'm going to do there. Having to maybe drop a player that I really don't want to drop just to fill in a Band-Aid, fill in a gap for that 1 week. So I'll take 1 week if it means I'm going to win 13 others. So it sounds to me like you're not necessarily against that. You just don't really care.
I don't care. I don't care about bye weeks.
But here's what's great about this. So like, this is one of those situations where we're kind of going against the grain. Because you listen to the radio station, like, oh, you got to pay attention to your buys. You got to balance it, balance. No, I don't think so. Manage your team however you want to. I know that there's a lot of folks that just they can't handle not having a full roster, and I get that. But at the same time, like we've had the rare occasion, it has happened, like in your home league, where I will actually start a guy that's been rolled out or whatever because they're too good to drop, and I'll take a lump. Mm-hmm. I'll take a lump for that 1 week, but I'm going to come back with a vengeance the next week.
Right. Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's not really one where we disagree. It's kind of a push. Like I don't specifically try to stack my roster, but when I'm drafting, and we've talked about this in another video, I just literally draft for points because points equal victories.
The way I look at bye weeks, it's just a number. That's all it is. It's just a number. It's a week off for a player. That's it. It's there. Mm-hmm. That's all I do.
It's all you should do. Mm-hmm. Very sound strategy. All right, what you got next?
Strength of schedule. Does this, when you look at strength of schedule, does this kind of sway you from drafting a particular player or not? Are you in or out on strength of schedule?
That's a very complicated, multifaceted answer. So I'm going to play vanilla. I'm going to say yes and no. Okay. So I'm not going to lie if I tell you all that are watching this video that I don't look ahead at the schedules. But it really depends on the position. I don't really necessarily look at the wide receiver or tight end position. I do a little bit the quarterback and the running back because, wide receivers, you start multiple wide receivers. Tight ends are so thin that if you get a stud, you're going to take that stud, right? Whatever. Defenses, I stream. Kickers, I mean, I typically stream those for the most part, but if I get a kicker that's like capable of kicking a 50 or 60 yard field goal on a high scoring offense, I'll keep more than 1 week. But so yes and no. I know that's a very lackadaisical answer, but it's also the truth. If I've got a running back that I know plays in a division that's very good against the run, I might pass on them. So I'm going to use Joe Mixon as an example. Not necessarily this year. I was actually very high. I was wrong so far, but I was very high on Joe Mixon prior to the season. But in years past, I was down on him because he played in the AFC North, and I thought, man, that's a division with a lot of good defenses. He's going to face a lot of good defenses. But having said that, it's positional based, but not really. Your studs are your studs. So like case in point, there would have been people that would have punted on Joe Burrow because on paper, Pittsburgh had a good defense last year. Baltimore had a decent defense last year. Cleveland had a good defense on paper. But Joe Burrow ends up leading the Bengals to the Super Bowl. Okay. If you look at the AFC West this year, this is a great example. Denver has all these pass rushers, right? You look at the Chargers, people are saying, oh, they got a top 3 offense, top 3 defense. The potential's there. That's fantastic. Okay, that's great. Oh, look what Vegas just did. They went out and they got a new pass rusher. They've addressed the secondary. Did that stop you from taking Patrick Mahomes? So yes and no. To some degree, yes. To some degree, no. It's more for me a defense or a kicker situation, but I tend to stream those anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a very vanilla answer. I guess because it's a vanilla answer, it's more of a no. I don't really pay attention to it too much because guys are going to produce that are going to produce. But having said that too, I'm not naive. Like I was purposely not high on Najee Harris this year. I just wasn't. The offensive line wasn't good. He's got to play Cleveland twice. I really like what Cincinnati did on the defense. Baltimore, they may not be very good against the pass, but they are pretty, what's that swear word? We're going to keep this PG, pretty dang good against the run.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to say that I'm oblivious to it, but to me, it's like, okay, if the offensive line is good enough to overcome it, because, you know, from my conversations with Jordan, it always goes back to the offensive line. I'm an offensive lineman by heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not oblivious to it, but I don't necessarily make it the most important factor.
Okay. Well, so it seems like you're kind of out on it, but you're somewhat in on it too.
This is one of those that if I was on the Shark Tank, I would probably make an offer, but it would be a very weak offer.
Okay.
So let's say that a person's offering 10% equity in their company for $100,000.
You want
I
50%.
might offer them the $100,000, but I want $50,000 or 50%.
Okay, so with me, this is something that I am absolutely 100% out on.
Okay.
100%. If I'm on Shark Tank, I'm saying I'm out.
Okay, let's hear
And
it.
here's why. 2 key words that came from what you had just said. Last year. Last year.
Yep.
Nobody cares about last year.
Does last year have anything to do with what's going on?
Exactly. Yes. So in all the years that I've been watching football, I can only remember one instance where a team brought back a majority, like probably 95% of their players from the previous year, and that was Tampa Bay last year when they brought back a majority of their roster when they won the Super Bowl in 2020. I can't remember a team that brought back, the same defensive players, the same offensive line players, sometimes even the same skilled position players. It changes every offseason. And plus you also have to take into account somebody's going to get hurt during training camps.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to get hurt during a preseason game. A big name player. Look at Tampa's offensive line, what happened to them just in the preseason.
Right, they didn't make it to the season, they lost how many offensive linemen?
Like 2 or 3.
Yep.
So strength of schedule is 100% based off last year. I just can't buy into that kind of a draft strategy when you're trying to base off what happened last year. Nobody cares about last year. So for that reason, I'm out.
Okay. And, well, I think you just swayed me. I mean, I was on the fence to begin with. I think you just swayed me. I'm out.